Welcome back to the Tease podcast. Today, we're going to be digging into some of the aftermath that came about after the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle controversy. We're also going to be talking about implementing systems in your business to have really successful outcomes for what you do, and talking about what to do when you get hate online. Hi, my name is Joanna, and I'm the co-founder of Millennial Marketer, an agency that helps creators build their own digital products.
And I'm Michelle, founder of To Be Honest Beverage Company. We're a non-alcoholic functional spirit brand, as well as a business mentor and consultant for personal brands and marketing strategy. Let's dive in.
I'm excited to chat today with you about all things marketing. We had a big week last week, a lot going on. But before we get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today, I will be sharing what I'm drinking today. I'm drinking my very kind of boring, usual brown sugar, oat milk, iced latte, homemade, cheaper than Starbucks, better for the environment because I'm using glass and all of that. So that is what I'm drinking today while we chat.
Love it. I'm super basic today. I'm drinking my mushroom drink, got some unsweetened almond milk, trying to reduce my sugar intake right now, which is really challenging. I'm good with okay, no gluten, no cow dairy. I can cut out a lot of different things, but no sugar is actually really challenging because sugar is in so many things. And also I like sweet stuff. So that's been kind of tough, but super simple mushroom drink this morning. Nice and easy.
Sugar is really tough. Sugar is really tough. And I don't think I've shared this on the podcast, but I've had quite some issues with my personal home right now, which is making eating really complicated. I had a power surge in my house, which completely fried my refrigerator. And I've had no refrigerator for like 3.5 weeks now. So we bought like a small chest freezer that's in our basement and we're using as a refrigerator till our refrigerator comes, which is coming on Friday. But can I tell you, I'm so busy and I'm running in between things. It's really hard to eat healthily when I'm out of system, because if I wanted to run up to my fridge and grab something, I'd have hard-boiled eggs or like something healthy that I could just kind of grab and eat in between meetings. But when it's downstairs and I have less stuff because I don't have the space, it's very challenging.
Yeah, not having the system set up can be really, really difficult. I mean, I think that's true in any aspect of our lives, right? When I came from healthy habit formation and fitness, it wasn't about willpower or determination or commitment or your ability to actually motivate to do something. It was about systems. It was about setting up ways of life and ways of being that allowed you to just do the thing without having to think about it. And so when you think about food, it's very similar. When you think about business, it's super similar. When you think about marketing, it's really similar. I was giving a workshop recently to a women's business group, and this conversation came up. Well, I struggle with the inspiration. I don't know how to get motivated. And I'm like, well, sorry, you shouldn't rely on that. Like, there is something to be said about the feminine intuition and guidance to be able to allow yourself to be open to, oh, I feel really inspired by this type of content right now. I really want to talk about this topic. Like, this is something that I really care about. I'm very passionate about it and I want to share it. But ultimately, that should be entirely supported by systems for consistency, regularity. And there's been a couple quotes from successful writers, comedians, artists of all kinds that say inspiration tends to show up when I show up consistently to write or to act or to create or to draw or to whatever it is. And so a lot of people think that, the successful creators, the successful business owners, the founders, they're all working off of inspiration and motivation and discipline to show up and do the thing. But it comes from this magical place. It doesn't. Like, anything that I hear from a successful personal development, business, creative, is because they've shown up with consistency. Now, it doesn't always look the same when they show up, but I'm finding that with my content creation challenge right now is that the more that I do it, the better I get at the systems and the efficiency of it. And so now I'm always kind of in the mode of content creation and marketing and positioning. And the more I get out, the more feedback I get. And the more then I can say, oh, okay, this is the type of content that is working for people, or this is the type of feedback that I get in this setting. Okay, awesome. Now let me change it. Let me do it differently. Let me do this thing. It's part of the process. So I think having the systems in any setting and context is super important.
And I think we kind of want it to not be a systems problem. I think there's a part of us that want like a magic pill that's going to make your content take off or make your business make money.
Yeah.
And we want this sort of big secret that's going to be the saving grace of whatever problem you're facing. But whether you're trying to like drive more traffic to your website or grow on social media or bring in more sales or create something, the secret is hard work and consistency. And it would be really nice if, right, just some sort of like magic fancy strategy fixed everything. But there's a reality that whatever you're trying to do, if you show up every day and do it, you're going to make progress on that thing. One of the things that I live and thrive on systems, and I would be a very stressed out person if I don't have systems. And one of the things early in my marketing career that I realized is as you're like climbing the corporate ladder, you have this idea of like, well, I'm going to understand why my boss is so stressed once I move up one level. I'm going to understand why my boss is so stressed and overwhelmed when I move up the next level. But as I moved up in the corporate world, I just created systems and I was a true believer that nothing in marketing is really an emergency. Like in public relations, there are emergencies, but generally speaking, marketing doesn't have emergencies. And when you create systems for when you're going to send emails, when you're going to post on social media, when you're going to do things, and you create systems for the creation of any of those types of pieces of content, whether it's a new web page or an email or a social post, they should all have a process they follow. When you have those systems, when there are quote unquote emergencies or things you have to respond quickly to or do, you come back to those systems. You can say, okay, when we create an email, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You still follow that system, but can get it out more quickly because you have a system in place. So one sort of argument I hear against people who are very anti-system is they say like, oh, I can't be creative within a system. But that system is what's gonna make you money, and then your creativity on top of that is gonna get you to the next level, and I think that's something that I wish people really understood, that those systems, like, sustain their business, their wild creativity when on top of a business with really strong systems, those are the ones that skyrocket, right?
Absolutely. It also opens up way more space for creativity. When you don't have to think about when, how, why, it's about decision fatigue. Like decision fatigue is a real thing, right? We only can make so many decisions during the day. And a lot of people start out and they think, especially if you're a solopreneur or business owner and you don't have a consistent regular schedule, which honestly, I actually very much struggle with this and have tried to work out a better approach. So I empathize with anyone out there who's listening and feeling like, well, I just can't have the same daily consistent schedule. I'm like, I don't have the same daily consistent schedule. No one day looks exactly the same for me. And that's how it works for me because I crave change and newness and I want to have strategy and systems and automations underneath me to support my business, but I don't like doing them. And so it's important for me to either hire on consultants or team members who can help with that process or figure out, systems like using AI underneath me that I don't have to actively work on, change, adjust, or create as I'm working. But having that structure gives you freedom. And I think that's something that I rebelled against in the beginning as well when I started doing my own business. Work online, especially, is because I felt like, oh, well, I want freedom to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And now it's funny because I'm actually in a place where that is like the truth from a scheduling perspective, but I actually want more structure now than ever because I think I value structure more than ever. And I see the importance of the systems and I see the importance of having that flow through the execution process. It's this podcast that we do every single week. Like if we didn't have the systems, if we didn't have the execution, it wouldn't get out on a weekly basis. And we wouldn't have this marketing platform, and we wouldn't have a chance to reach people at all different levels. And so, especially as I'm working with experts, authorities, service providers, they get stuck on this idea of like, oh, marketing is so hard. Marketing is so challenging. I can't do marketing. I can't talk that way. Oh, it's so much work. And it's like, actually, there are very simple systems that you can set up for yourself in the way that works for you that will help support grow your business over time. And then you just run those systems. Now, when it comes to actually executing on it, right, because you can set aside the time, you can say, okay, I'm going to create during this time. I'm going to write during this time. I'm going to publish during this time. I'm going to help my clients during this time. And I do know that there can be some real difficulty with showing up for those things and actually following through. So I think that takes a deeper dive and conversation with yourself to figure out and discover what's holding me back from this. What is the belief about this thing? What's my perception of this thing? And why am I struggling to execute on it? And then that's like a deeper conversation. And I think that has a lot to do with limiting beliefs and perception and how you kind of interpret the thing that you have to do, whether it's like, oh, this is such a chore, or I don't really understand this, or I never know what to say. Then it's like, okay, then you can uncover the next step of, okay, well, if you don't know what to say, what's it going to take in order to get that? Do you need to prepare your hooks in advance? Do you need to do research? Like, what are the things? And I think people get stuck at that shallow level of like, oh, well, I'm just not doing it. I'm like, okay, great. Well, then why are you not doing it? Like, let's uncover that process. So I think it's approachable from many different angles, but I know we kind of want to follow up on some of the marketing things that are happening right now and, of course, over the past week. So, Joanna, where do you want to start with that conversation?
Well, I think it would be really interesting for us to dive in a little bit about the response we're seeing to the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad. So in our last episode, we dove in kind of deep about really just specifically the controversy surrounding the American Eagle and Sydney Sweeney ad. And one of the things that happened really since we filmed that episode is a lot of brands started to respond. So both Abercrombie and Old Navy responded very, very quickly with ad campaigns, which was really interesting to watch. Old Navy came out with a slogan that said, "These jeans are the jeans your other jeans warned you about," which I thought was a really kind of fun, cheeky response. And Abercrombie came out with an ad campaign showing like a group of very diverse models when it came to skin tones, body sizes, and all of that, saying denim should feel like this. So we see kind of two brands responding to what American Eagle put out, kind of saying we're the other ones, right? Like we're for everyone. We are going to be a brand that kind of stays in the body positivity movement, stays in the kind of open for all movement, which was really cool to see, especially with, I'm not sure if you caught this, Michelle, but the White House and President Trump specifically has spoken in support of the American Eagle and Sydney Sweeney ad, saying that people who have disagreed with it or have issue with it are the problem, and then that brands who have woke ads really need to change their ways, which is like a really interesting thing to see in our country where like free speech has been a big part of who we are as a country. For the president to come out and say like, hey, if you didn't like that ad, or if you make ads that are quote unquote woke, you're part of the problem. So watching the aftermath, I think, is maybe even more interesting than even the controversy of itself. And it's kind of dying down. People are talking about it less, but we're still seeing like the ripple effects of what happened in the conversation from last week.
Did you see Sydney Sweeney's response?
I didn't see her response. What did she say?
I worked really hard to try to find it. I haven't seen, this is the tough part about social media and marketing and our media as a whole right now that really frustrates me is I don't know what I can trust anymore because there's so much deepfake content that's being created, especially even like with President Obama. I've seen like deepfake content of these AI avatars that are being created after popular people or celebrities. And so I genuinely can't always trust what I see in just like one place. If it's in multiple places and repeated, so I really had to search for Sydney Sweeney. The thing that I saw was basically her like mascara eye, like crying. It's like her laid on her couch and she's just holding the phone, like very
So
casual.
I think that's an old clip.
Is it?
I think it's an old because I went down that rabbit hole. I could be wrong, but I think that's an old clip from like a past thing. And I don't think that that's directly related to this ad. I think it's an old thing.
Okay, so
But
that's
I'm
the
not
thing is like
100% sure.
there wasn't any context in the video. She just was saying like, I'm a person, I'm just sitting here kind of thing. So that's the thing is like, I didn't know what it was in reference to, but of course it's being promoted as the response to this campaign. So I haven't been able to see anything in particular other than like an AI voice overlay of Sydney Sweeney responds to the campaign, da 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 da. And I just can't even listen to that. But it'll be interesting to see. Like, I'd love to hear and I'd love to see what is the feedback? What is the response from American Eagle right now? What are they actually saying and what are they putting out, as well as Sydney Sweeney? Now, I think it's been really interesting over the past week because there are two other campaigns that I've seen predominate during this time that are slightly related or at least being held in comparison. I did a video on Ralph Lauren's Oak Bluffs campaign. And then I didn't even want to talk about this. I did two videos that were structured in terms of like talking about the neuromarketing principles and why these types of campaigns work, independent of the controversy and the backlash, and independent of the political inclination, the racial divide, like all those types of things. And they performed well on social media, but they're really not like the direction that I want to go with my content. You get the comments, you got the interactions, you get the conversations. And I do actually want to talk about this today is how you present, respond, and engage with people online that doesn't just promote argumentation, that actually promotes like a healthy conversation. So we can chat about that in a little bit. But doing this type of content really allowed me to kind of like dive into this. And so I don't know if you saw the Dunkin Donuts commercial with, I think the actor's name is Gavin something, but he plays Jeremiah in The Summer I Turned Pretty.
Yeah, I saw it.
You saw it?
Yeah, I saw the ad. And it came out at the same time as the Sydney Sweeney ad.
Yeah. So then you see TikTok just like go down. Social media is such a funny place to me, but everyone was then responding, not everyone, but a ton of people are like, really Dunkin' Donut genetics, like you had to put this out right now. And then everyone else is like, oh my God, it's
that
freaking
was like
Dunkin'
the weirdest ad though. Like the thing what with that ad, and I know a lot of people have varying opinions on this ad. Like why? Like watching it, at least from my perspective, it feels less harmful and less intentional than the Sydney Sweeney ad. But like, why be like, I'm tan because of my, I just think that was like such a weird thing to put in an ad. Like, why is it even there?
Well, the name of the drink, right, is like summer something. It's like Golden Summer. I think that's the name of the drink.
But like,
right?
Say like, I get a golden tan. Like, why bring up genetics? I just think that's weird. I think it's
I don't know.
weird. Like, it was a weird thing.
Well, because overall, I think from a marketing perspective, what the approach is meant to do is basically feature good-looking people and just say, like, this is just how I am and who I am. Like, this is just genetics. This is just part of me. I think that it's tough because the conversation around the Sydney Sweeney ad going into the eugenics side of things is it's not to say that genetics has not been referred to in plenty of ads in different contexts. Now, that ad could have easily been done with any without any copy, without any voiceover of Sydney Sweeney, and then having that like what sound like, you know, like the man of Sydney Sweeney has great genes. And it was like so abrupt and so abrasive at the end of each of the videos. Sydney Sweeney has great genes over and over. And I don't know, just there were so many things about that campaign that, even again, not from like a political or racial perspective, were just not as thoughtful as I feel like it could have been, especially. And I think the biggest issue with that campaign was really the lack of authenticity and trueness to the brand of American Eagle.
Yeah.
And that is one of the biggest reasons why it'll ultimately be a negative impact on the brand. It made money at first. The campaign
stock is
totally
already
worked.
falling.
Yeah.
Like the stock
Well,
is already
also,
going back down. So
if you look at the stock and like I looked at some of the things. So I looked at some of the revenue numbers, I looked at the valuation, I looked at the stocks, which like I'm not a big financial person in the stocks realm, so that's not like a strong suit of mine. But if you even just look at like over time and the valuation, like Ralph Lauren versus something like American Eagle, where Ralph Lauren already does like 1.3-ish times annual revenue, their valuation though is about 9x. And their stock comparison at the time I was looking at it, American Eagle was sitting around like $10 or something like that, or 10 something. And Ralph Lauren is like over 200. So just the comparison of the brands is very, very different. But the Oak Bluffs ad, some of the things that I highlighted about that. Now, there was, of course, backlash from the Black community because they felt like it was elitist, classist, that it didn't represent all Black people, which I think is kind of, from my personal perspective, humorous in and of itself, because it's tough. Like when you look at the historical implications of race in this country, there are so many challenges and different directions you can take the conversation. But with the conversation around what someone would call like Black excellence and Black people doing really well. So you're talking about like athletics and celebrities and politicians, and you're looking at like HBCUs and HBCs as historically Black colleges or universities that have created an environment for education, for success, for political involvement, for wealth building, for growth. That's a segment of the Black population. Now, not all Black people associate with being in that way. The thing is that there are a lot of Ivy League schools that are predominantly, maybe not predominantly white, but have a huge white history as well. And I didn't go to an Ivy League. I grew up under the poverty line. I consider myself majority white, even though I have a mixed background. And I don't look at ads from like Hugo Boss or Prada or Versace or name the brand Ralph Lauren of white people and say that's elitist, that's classist. Because it's just a different, like there are always going to be different segments of the society and our culture that appeal to mass, quantity, like low cost, middle class, a little bit higher, etc. And then you have like luxury, and that's capitalism. We don't live in a society where there's equity across brands and across products and across people. We live in a society where you can make a certain amount of money to live a certain type of lifestyle. And just because there's what I consider to be a beautiful campaign that comes out that represents, now I've never heard of Oak Bluffs. I've heard of Martha Vineyard. I've never been there. I've never been to this area. I didn't go to an IB. I'm not Black, but I can watch something like that campaign and I feel a sense of admiration, pride, and legacy because that was what was communicated through the actual campaign and the marketing that they presented. So it's kind of almost a disappointment to see Black communities who respond to that type of demonstration of a Black lifestyle that doesn't fit their model of the world.
And that's the reality with these advertisements or any media or any movies or anything that we consume is that things get a reaction, right? And you might watch the ad and react one way. Another community is going to watch the ad and react another way. And the reality is they're actually all valid, right? Like I can watch the Sydney Sweeney ad, have my thoughts and opinions. Someone else can have their thoughts and opinions. What's tough is when someone says your opinion is wrong or invalid,
Yeah.
like the White House did with all of us who have some issues with the American Eagle ad. So brands are connect with people like that, right? And we've talked on this podcast. You get attention by taking a stand, by being specific, right? Some people aren't going to like you, and that's okay. So these
Yeah.
ad campaigns have to get a reaction, and as a brand, you get to pick what you want. My husband said a really interesting thing about because we shopped at American Eagle. Um, it was never my favorite store, but it was like for me a great place to be like, I need t-shirts or like I'm looking for a hoodie or like a good basics option. My husband now said, he's like, you know what? Even if they apologized at this point, like I'm not going to throw out all of my American Eagle clothes, but he's like, I kind of don't want to be associated with that brand. That brand doesn't fit me anymore. Whether they did anything wrong or right, like if they're going in that direction, that doesn't fit me and my lifestyle anymore. So like I don't want to represent them. And so there's a reality that we have to connect with brands. And I think why I personally am kind of like passionate about showing body positivity and diversity and, you know, people of all skin tones living all types of lifestyles is because I really do think it impacts us. And I think it impacts how we interact with the world. And for me as a business owner, I want to put things out that into the world that do things positively for people. And one really good example of this, we talked about K-pop Demon Hunters like a couple weeks ago in that movie. But like my daughter is obsessed, along with a lot of the world, with K-pop Demon Hunters. And you think, oh, it's just a cute movie on Netflix. But now she wants to try Korean food. She wants to listen to other Korean music. She wants to learn, she wants to go to Korea. She wants to kind of learn their history. Now her mind, because of this film, which is rooted in Korean culture, she's now opening her mind to other things. And that is like, if you make really great ads and really great content, you can open people's minds up to new possibilities instead of closing them down. Or you can create content that makes them think more narrow. And what do you want to do as a creator? Do you want to help people like open their minds and see possibilities and expand and grow? Or do you want to help them keep a narrow worldview? You have a choice as a brand, right? And you're going to attract different customers based on what content you put out.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm seeing a lot of conversations around this of like, okay, well, if she wasn't white, blonde hair, blue-eyed, how would this campaign have gone? Or would it have the same intention, the same feel? There's nothing wrong with Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney.
Sydney Sweeney. I've said it so many times over the past week. Sydney Sweeney. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with her being white, blue-eyed, blonde hair, which might be dye anyway. Like there's nothing wrong with her and how she is. And again, that campaign would have been totally fine and probably very well received had they not brought up the idea of genes being passed down, etc. Like they chose that narrative, and whether it got the response that they wanted to or not, who's to say? Now, I think that there's something really important to keep in mind as we approach these types of things, because I did see something about fashion. Like if you have fashion models, say you're in Sweden, there is a certain type of look and person from a not just heritage, but geographical sense of someone's going to look a certain way when they come from a certain area. Same thing if you go to Africa. Same thing if you go to China. Same thing if you go to Korea. There's a certain type of look. India, that I do think it's beautiful to represent and to recognize. And so highlighting and leaning into a representation. So let's just say Oak Bluffs, because that was all Black people. And someone can come out and say, well, there should have been diversity and representation in that ad in order to diversify the skin tone, the body size, the look, the feel, the whatever. But that ad was a representation of an area and a culture that was developed there around Black people, and they're feeling represented and associated with one another and seeing people who look like them excel in school, in politics, in wealth building, in business ownership. And that told a very specific story. So we're not looking at that campaign and say, I wish that they had thrown in some Chinese people and I wish that they'd thrown in some white people in order to quote unquote diversify it. But the intention was very different and the representation was very different. And what they were talking about was very different, talking about heritage and legacy and pride and generations and just the way of being in a certain area and what that looks like. Now, when it comes to the Dunkin' Donuts and the Sydney Sweeney ad is you only have one person that is of celebrity value because they're both the Summer I Turned Pretty and the Gavin actor playing Jeremiah. He's very popular right now. And then Sydney Sweeney, of course, with everything that she's done. She has over 25 million followers or something on Instagram. She is very well followed, very well, quote unquote, liked in America, I would say, or in our culture and in our society. And so when you have just one person representing something that's supposed to be a brand that speaks to a lot of different type of people, I think that's when you come into an issue. But I also think that we're in a time of so much noise that brands are trying, hoping, scheming to try to figure out how they can stand out from the crowd and really make a splash because there's tons of money that goes into these campaigns. Not to mention they're planned out way in advance. Dunkin' Donuts didn't see the Sydney Sweeney ad about genes and genetics and then say, hey, Gavin, come in, let's film this thing and then put it out around this time and then add to the fire of genetics conversations. No, these are multi-billion-dollar, billion, I actually didn't look up Dunkin' Donuts, but billions of dollars in revenue, billions of dollars in valuation. And so the budgets that they're working with are ridiculous. The teams are huge and it's an extensive period of time that they've planned out these things. And so I think people just lose sight of that and lose track of that and also are incredibly mean. Like there's just so much meanness happening in the space. Like I'm grateful that I feel like the conversations that I feel like I've been able to start by putting out videos around this are positive. And I will say, I'll add this because I brought it up earlier in terms of the comments and things like that, is that I've always been nervous to create content because of getting certain types of comments or feedback or backlash. And I've had to kind of change my perspective on that and change the narrative for myself to release that fear and that limiting belief and allow myself to embrace one, I'm going to attract the type of person who is going to respond positively and compassionately. And two, I can handle any of the comments that come my way, whether that is criticism or whether that is someone wanting to have a deeper conversation. I think that a lot of people, and someone actually commented, and at first it seems like the comment is a little abrasive or a little bit rude or a little bit defensive. But if you respond in a more neutral and inquisitive way with them and help them see something different, their feedback and that response to my comment was actually like, yeah, I'm so sorry it came off that way. I just don't really understand what's happening here. And then they asked a couple questions and was like, I tend to be offensive or defensive when someone's expressing negative feelings about this. And so I think that a lot of times online, we're moving through things really quickly and people are responding really rapidly. And a lot of people have a knee-jerk reaction. So people are saying a lot of negative things about this Sydney Sweeney deal. And so they're going to be mean. It's like driving. You know how when you're driving and you have road rage and you're yelling at the other drivers, you would never do that in person. You would never treat people that way. And I think it's something that we should all remind ourselves is that even though we're behind a screen, we're dealing with other real people on the other end. And that's all I really have to say about that.
I've gotten in myself and knowingly so, into several situations in my social media career of like angry hate comments. One of my Sydney Sweeney videos, I think it's up to like 4,000 mean comments and like
Holy
1,000.
cannoli,
It's what
4,000
don't go
comments on one video?
and people what because what happens is when if like you get that very mega heavy male crowd, if you get them to start commenting on your videos, the video gets sent to more of them and more of them. And they're literally just, oddly enough, regurgitating what Fox News says about people like me, about liberal women. And the truth is, I think this video was worse than others. This was like the first video I posted like that where I have my tattoo. And I was getting like negative comments about women's with tattoos, right? Like it's just wild. I'm making a video about trying to hold businesses accountable, billionaires, business owners accountable for putting out positive messaging into the world, and get like you're ugly in response. There's no logic or reasoning or anything when someone goes there. Because I'm saying, like, maybe we should hold billionaires accountable. I'm not saying, I don't think the CEO of American Eagle is a billionaire, but you get what I'm saying. Like, very wealthy, elite people are we should hold them accountable to, well, you're just ugly and jealous, right? And it's wild. But when that happens, the weirdest thing that happens to me when that happens is when that's going on my phone and I leave my house, especially if I leave my neighborhood where I don't know people. I walk around and I see adult men with their children who like, and I live in a pretty heavily like Republican area who are probably Trump supporters. I think that could be the guy. Like that could be the guy saying you're just an ugly, woke, jealous liberal, right? He could just be a normal person walking down the street with his children. And I think there just is like, I actually feel a lot of compassion for them. Like, I know maybe I shouldn't because I'm getting yelled at and berated. I mean, people saying horrible things, some that get like denied by TikTok because they're so bad. I think these a lot of these people are being told by the media to think and feel certain things about me, and they're fighting against me instead of what we're all supposed to be doing as American citizens, is like holding the government and holding businesses accountable. We're supposed to vote with our votes, and we're supposed to vote with our dollars for who we think is going to like actually help us and protect us, and that's how like capitalism theoretically is supposed to work. But what happens is instead people are defending the billionaires and defending the people in charge when we should be holding them accountable, and instead thinking I'm the problem. The woman on the internet saying like, hey, and my takes on this thing have been pretty mild compared to some I've seen. Instead of saying like, hey, maybe we should take people, hold people accountable for this. And then they fight me. And I think that's like sad, but I think it's something important to know about like human nature. We have this like hive mindset, right? We find our tribe and we want to stick with them. And I think it takes a special kind of person to be open-minded and realize there's good and bad on both sides, right? Like it's not so black and white. And um I don't know the point of all of that, what I was saying, but there is a reality when you go on the internet and you have opinions and you make a stand that you're going to get that backlash. But you're right, Michelle, like there is something to be said with like how you craft things to attract the right people. But that being said, sometimes even when you're careful, which I am, when you're careful, if you spark the wrong nerve because you're a woman with an opinion that's different than that of the president of the United States, you'll be attacked. And that's just kind of a reality we put ourselves in. But for me, like I want to be a voice for people and like say things when I see something that I think is wrong.
Yeah, I think it's just about the decision of how we choose to engage in our content, right? Like if you are listening and you're in the business space, you don't have to talk about Sydney Sweeney's ad with American Eagle. You don't have to talk about anything that's occurred over the past couple weeks. We do believe in and usually promote on the Tease podcast overall that as a personal brand, you should be representing your values. Now, for a lot of people, that doesn't mean that you have to cross into the political world. Now, obviously, there's just been so much change over the past year with our politics and with office and with the things that we're seeing happening in the US that it is hard for a lot of people to continue to go silent, and not talk about these things. And so you're going to see a lot of that, I think, a lot more in people's personal brands and what they're talking about and everything else. But we just ultimately get to decide. We get to decide how we engage online, and we can steer the conversation the direction that we want it to, and we can avoid certain topics, And depending on who you're attracting, some people could see that video and be like, oh, yeah, I completely agree. I'm totally in support. And other people will say, no, you're dumb, or whatever the case is. And it's just, you are opening yourself up to that vulnerability. And I think it's finding the way in which it's going to work for you, and also protecting yourself, because mental health is a really big part of that conversation. When you're getting that much hate online, it can be really hard to internalize it. And also feel like, when you're building a business online, you're creating content consistently, or you're connecting with people online, you have your clients online. Sometimes it can feel like that world is very real. Right? Like that is the quote unquote real world. And all of these people's opinions of me and what they're saying about me are true, right? Like if you didn't have such a strong internal fortitude of who you are, what you stand in, what you believe in, and can see these people for what they are in terms of their projections and their difficulty. And you're right, having probably been fed, media and news that has led them to this place of narrow lens, is that there are a lot of people who could be more affected by that. And I think we all have that sense of like, well, what if we get criticism? What if we get hate? What if we get trolls? And I like to remember that everybody that I admire, look up to, also have haters.
Mm-hmm.
They also have people who say negative things about them, whether it's behind their back, to their faces, or online. And I saw this, I don't know if you've ever seen, but I forget which show it's on, but celebrities read mean tweets about themselves.
Yes.
I think it's so funny because here you have these ridiculously successful people in their career who, everyone's so different, but whether they're a musician or a celebrity or a comedian or a producer or whatever, they've contributed something in terms of creation, and they've usually put themselves in a position to get vulnerability by having fame or by having attention on them or anything else. But one of my favorite ones is about Zendaya, and she's sitting there reading it, and it says something to the effect of like, Zendaya's feet probably smell like Funyuns. And she just takes off her shoe, holds it up, which it's a red bottom shoe. So it's Manolo Blahnik, I think.
Louis
Vuitton.
Are those red bottoms or Manolo's red bottoms? This shows you
red bottom.
One of those brands.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're Manolo Blahniks. So anyway, and she smells it and she says, it smells like success to me. And I just love that perspective, because even someone like Zendaya, who I think has created such a powerful, successful career for herself, I think from an ethical, personal lifestyle perspective, she's never really gone down the route of drugs, alcohol, conflict.
At least
she doesn't have a huge,
At least that we know.
At least we know of.
She could have a good PR person keeping things secret.
But I think she's totally, like, she's not a big drinker, and she just doesn't engage in a lot of that stuff. And she's chosen a lifestyle for herself. She's absolutely gorgeous, has done so many ridiculously beautiful shoots. And she's just a really good person. She does a lot of like nonprofit work, give backs, and everything else. So I can see someone like her as what I feel is like, that is like the top of our society, like in terms of excellence. Like, she does super great for herself. She's a really great person. She lives this life. And there's people out there hating on her. And I just think that we're in a world that, independent of what you choose, what you do, you're going to receive some type of backlash, obviously some larger than others. And this was my takeaway from the entire past week, and seeing all of these ads come out and seeing these people, like, because, right, Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle, like, theoretically, we should be going after the brand, because this is a brand and business that put this out into the world. Now, Sydney Sweeney is getting a ton of heat for this as an individual, as a personal brand. So my takeaway from this entire experience is that if you have a business, if you're creating a platform, if you're building any type of presence with your personal brand, you have to figure out, what are your values? What is authentic to your brand voice? Commit to it and move forward. Like, you just have to keep moving forward, and you have to stick to what you believe in and do that.
And I know we're talking about this today in like a very grand scheme, right? Talking about Sydney Sweeney and Zendaya and these huge, huge brands, American Eagle, all of these big brands. The reality is that, like, understanding yourself and having enough sense of self and thinking about that in the brand you put in the world, it's important. Whether you have 0 followers and you're just selling through like networking and traditional sales outlets, whether you're creating content, whether you have 100 followers or 1,000 followers, having that strong sense of core self is so important if you're trying to be a business owner. First of all, for everyone, it's important. But I think especially for business owners who are going out and paving a different path, like, you will get hate. But that hate might not even come from online, right? That might come from people you know. And for me, I've been building a very different life for myself, for me and my family. When my husband decided to be a stay-at-home dad, we received direct hate from people we knew. When I decided to start a business, I had family members laugh at the idea that my business could make over $100,000 in a single year. My business has made well over $1 million at this point, right? And not this year, but like in total. And so if I internalize those comments and I let them stop me from doing the things that I want in life, I would not be where I am today. I would not be able to take a whole afternoon to film a podcast episode with Michelle and get it out in the world. I would not be able to live a life where me and my family are home together all day, which is amazing. It puts me in a position where I can work really hard and get to see my family and have relationships with my family. I've made choices that go against the status quo, gotten hate from that, both online and from real people in my life, but have had to have enough security in myself to say, I'm going to do it anyway. And some days are easier or harder than others. But I think that that's how you grow a successful business, and a successful business that you love, that you want to wake up and do every day, that you want to be a part of when you have a strong enough sense of self to not let the haters, whoever they are, like, affect you negatively.
Yep, haters gonna hate. And I think it's so important that we find our internal fortitude and find our lives outside of the digital space, right? Like, we talk so much about marketing and content creation and online digital platforms, but get outside, like, take a walk. Like, if you're dealing with that sometimes like shitstorm of emotion that comes up, and that spiraling thought pattern of how people are responding to you, or the criticism, or your worry about judgment or fear of what's going to take place, is like, go to the beach, go to a park, go talk to real people, go to a cafe, meet with a friend, like, sit down and drink a beverage that you love, have a nice meal, like, pull yourself out of that place, read a book, do something else, like, just get yourself out of it.
Watch The Summer I Turned Pretty with Michelle.
Watch The Summer I Turned Pretty. I am watching it. Actually, I am loving that they're releasing one. This is great. They're releasing one episode a week, like, through September. So the entire 3rd season is not just dumped. And I actually really love that they've made this choice. So you can't just binge watch the entire season, which is a really bad habit that I feel like we as a society, myself included, have gotten into because of Netflix and because of our streaming platforms. That never used to be the case. I did not grow up binge watching 8, 10, 20 episodes of a freaking show back to back to back to back. That's not the way that we're supposed to engage in things. And so the fact that they release a new episode every single week, at first I was like, that's stupid. But now I'm like, actually, this is genius. This is one, extends the interest of it. Now there's more conversation online. What's going to happen next week? I predict that this is going to be the thing. What da, 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 da. And it has something for, like we have something to look forward to. And it makes it more engaging. So the point is get out, live your life. Remember that you are a whole person and that your marketing and your business is just an aspect of what you bring to the world. It is not a representation of your value as a human being. It is completely independent from that. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Click Tease podcast. Hit that subscribe button. Share with a friend who needs a reminder that hate comments online does not make up who they are as an individual. And we'll see you next time.